Oh, you...
I think that started off better than it ended up. Didn't it? The whole lame duck thing? In any case, even if our sounder signifying the lame duck Congress and our lame duck watch has gotten significantly lamer over time, it turns out that the lame duck Congress itself is not that lame. Forget policy, forget what you're supposedly for, forget your own ideas that you are on the record supporting or even proposing. Nothing can pass. No matter what the country needs, no matter what you believe the country needs, nothing can pass in Washington because something passing, something getting done might have a side effect, a horrible side effect of making Barack Obama look not bad for a second. So, turns out I was totally wrong about that. Totally wrong, ugly wrong, shame-faced wrong. Because in this lame duck Congress, stuff is passing right now. Today, a stopgap spending bill passed to keep the federal government going. That is on its way to the president's desk. Also, that food safety bill passed, the biggest overhaul of food safety since 1938. It's on its way to the president's desk. And something else really cool passed. They finally passed that thing where commercials can't be louder than the TV shows now. Which means I'm going to do everything in a whisper from here on out. So when the commercials come on during this show, you will still have the comforting, familiar feeling of being screamed at. Joining us now is John Stanton, reporter for Roll Call. Mr. Stanton, thanks very much for your time.
It's good to be here.
Was it clear before the lame duck session that the commercials are too loud act was going to be one of the things that they actually made time for in this really short, packed session?
Yeah, no, that was actually not on the list of items that anyone was talking about. Although it is, it's pretty classic sort of legislating, frankly, like, do something to make it look like you understand the plight of your constituents, though I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. Look at the no-call list that people still call you, so
I will say, if it works, if it does actually go into effect, I will be very happy that this passed. I'm just completely blindsided that this is one of the things that got done in the lame duck. I feel like the common wisdom has been totally unreliable in predicting what's going to happen in this session, and particularly in the Senate. What do you think they'll actually be able to get done in the next few days?
Realistically, in the next few days, probably not much. They will have they'll have this sort of fight over these two tax bills that Democrats want to have votes on, but they don't expect those to pass. They'll continue to try to work on START, and behind the scenes, very much behind the scenes, they're continuing to work on how to spend to pay for the federal government over the next about 10 months. It looks like those three things seem like they're likely to pass. Don't ask, don't tell may be able to pass in the next 2 weeks, but it really seems like those would be the three sort of big ticket items that get done.
In terms of the way that you're able to report on what's going on in this Congress right now, I feel like there definitely is a big beltway common wisdom about what's going to happen. It's been pretty much consistently wrong about what's going to happen in the Senate recently. Who are you looking to actually understand, to actually report well on what's happening, on who's scheduling things, about what the priorities are? Are there strong signals?
Yeah, ironically enough, it's already sort of the Republicans. They seem, particularly on the taxes and on START, they're sort of more plugged into sort of how things are happening, in large part because they sort of have the White House's ear. They both sort of agree that the tax cut deal that is eventually going to be put together will have an extension for all the tax cuts for 2 years, not just for middle class. They're in negotiations now with the White House and with some Senate Democrats and House Democrats on sort of what other things will get put in there, unemployment insurance, some parts of the stimulus bill. But they're really, they sort of are holding the cards to a certain extent in doing this, and are able to stop things or let things go through sort of at their leisure, really, frankly.
If what Republicans are telling you about what they expect to happen on those tax votes actually happens, that would represent a pretty giant cave on the Democratic position, and the Democrats are still the majority in the Senate. They do obviously still control the White House. Is there any what you feel like is a good indication of what Democrats will be able to get out of Republicans in terms of concessions if they do let Republicans have their way on taxes?
It looks like it's going to be at least a one-year extension of unemployment insurance benefits. There are provisions in the stimulus bill. There's one called Make Work Pay, which is a tax cut that everyone got that you sort of don't realize because it's not that big, frankly. But there's a few things like that. But there's sort of some modest pieces. Something that's called the tax extenders, which is a very sort of wonky bill that the Democrats have wanted. Those are going to be sort of the things. The irony behind all of this, though, is that because the White House wants it, because a lot of leadership in the Democratic Party wants it, and Republicans want it, we're sort of waiting around to wait and see when the rest of the Democrats sort of come to terms with the fact that they're not going to be able to pass a middle-class-only bill and sort of figure out how to move forward from there.
I think that the fight over that is, again, one of those things that's going to be sort of unpredictable until it happens. Let me just ask you one last specific point on the Defense Authorization Act, including, of course, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Any reliable vote counting on that at this point, or does it still seem like it's uncertain as to whether or not 60 votes will be able to break that Republican filibuster?
It's still uncertain. Today with Senator Brown and Senator Collins coming out, that I think builds some momentum towards getting there. Senator Webb has not quite come out and said he won't vote for it. He sort of says he doesn't want to, or he has some concerns. There is some thought that he may vote for cloture, which would allow it to come to a vote, and then that would put it at a 50-vote level where he could still vote against it, but it could still pass. So it's close. I think it's within a couple of votes, which is why Republicans, frankly, are so concerned about it.
John Stanton, reporter for Roll Call. Thanks very much for joining us, John. Really appreciate it.
Anytime.
One note I should mention on the food safety bill that I described it as having passed. What happened here is it passed the House, and then it passed the Senate. And when two things pass the House and the Senate, remember the whole conjunction junction thing, right? I'm just a bill here on Capitol Hill. When that happens, the two houses then have to resolve the differences between the bill before it goes to the president. There are indications that the House may just go ahead and pass what the Senate passed, which means it goes to the president and it's on its way to passing, but that has not yet technically happened yet. So in order to be precise and accurate about that, let me say the food safety bill, not yet a done deal. All right, still ahead. Remember when George Bush Sr. called Ronald Reagan's trickle-down supply-side philosophy voodoo economics? If it was voodoo then, it is even voodooier now. That's next.
So what I'm saying is that it just isn't going to work. And it's very interesting that the man who invested this type of what I call a voodoo economic policy